The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the bustling streets of Chicago. The sound of honking cars and the chatter of pedestrians filled the air, creating a vibrant symphony that underscored the city's heartbeat. At this hour, the streets were alive, teeming with people returning home from work, eager to unwind. Among them was Maya Johnson, a 28-year-old graphic designer, who navigated her way through the throngs with a practiced ease. She was a woman of strength and independence, known for her creative flair and unwavering determination. Maya had built a life for herself in this city, one that was filled with her own aspirations and dreams. She had a small but cozy apartment adorned with her artwork, a testament to her talent and hard work. Every day, she put in long hours at her job, pouring her heart into designs that spoke of her experiences as a Black woman in a predominantly white industry. She was proud of her accomplishments and fiercely protective of her space, having worked hard to create a sanctuary that was distinctly hers. As she walked to her favorite cafe, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, a comforting embrace that welcomed her. She stepped inside, greeted by the barista with a warm smile. "The usual, Maya?" he asked, already reaching for her favorite blend. She nodded, grateful for the small gestures that made her day just a little brighter. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Maya took her coffee and settled into a corner table, the soft hum of conversation surrounding her. She pulled out her sketchbook, her fingers itching to create. The world outside faded as she immersed herself in her art, each stroke of her pencil capturing her thoughts and emotions. It was her escape, a way to express the complexities of her life and the struggles she faced. But beneath the surface of her seemingly normal life lay an undercurrent of tension that she couldn't ignore. Lately, she had felt a watchful presence, a shadow lurking just beyond her line of sight. It had started as a fleeting sensation, a prickling at the back of her neck whenever she stepped out of her apartment. At first, she brushed it off as paranoia, the result of her overactive imagination. But as days turned into weeks, that feeling solidified into something more tangible, more frightening. Maya took a sip of her coffee, her mind wandering back to the night it all began. It was a week ago, at an art gallery opening. She had been excited to showcase her work, mingling with fellow artists and potential clients. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. But amidst the celebration, she had felt his gaze, piercing and intense, as if he could see right through her. The man in question was Viktor Petrov, a name that sent shivers down her spine. He was a Russian Bratva Boss, known for his ruthlessness and power. She had heard whispers about him in the art community, tales of his wealth and influence that sent chills through even the most seasoned artists. But it wasn't just his reputation that unnerved her. It was the way he had looked at her that night, a mixture of intrigue and something darker, something possessive. Their paths had crossed when she had accidentally bumped into him, her coffee spilling onto his tailored suit. She had been mortified, scrambling to apologize as he towered over her, his presence commanding and intimidating. "You have a talent for making a mess," he had said, a smirk playing on his lips. There was an undeniable magnetism about him, an allure that was both captivating and terrifying. Once their eyes locked, Maya had felt a rush of emotions, a flicker of something she couldn't quite place. But she quickly shook it off, reminding herself that she didn't belong in his world. She was an artist, a dreamer, not someone who could ever be entangled in the dangerous web of the Bratva. Yet, as the night wore on, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her, assessing her every move. In the days that followed, she had tried to distance herself from the memory of Viktor, focusing on her work and her friends. But he had a way of creeping back into her thoughts, like a haunting melody that refused to fade. She had heard rumors of his obsession with beauty, how he collected art and women alike, and the thought made her skin crawl. The last thing she wanted was to be a target of his interest, a pawn in a game she didn't want to play. As she finished her coffee, Maya glanced out the window, her heart racing as she caught a glimpse of a black SUV parked across the street. The driver sat motionless, his gaze fixed on the cafe. A chill ran down her spine as she recognized the vehicle from the gallery. Panic surged within her, and she quickly gathered her belongings, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. She stepped out of the cafe, her instincts kicking in as she chose a different route to her apartment. The streets were still busy, but the sense of safety they usually provided felt elusive. She walked briskly, her heart pounding in her chest as she navigated the familiar streets. Every shadow seemed to loom larger, every passerby a potential threat. She felt the weight of eyes on her, the sensation of being hunted. Maya turned a corner, her breath quickening as she spotted another black SUV parked a few blocks ahead. This wasn't just paranoia, it was a reality she couldn't ignore. She quickened her pace, her mind racing with thoughts of how to protect herself. She needed to find a way to disappear, to evade the grasp of a man who seemed determined to draw her into his dangerous world. As she approached her apartment building, she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Victor trailing behind her. But the street was empty, the only sound the echo of her footsteps against the pavement. She pushed through the entrance, her heart still racing, as she climbed the stairs to her apartment. Once inside, she locked the door behind her, leaning against it as she tried to catch her breath. The walls felt like they were closing in, and she could still feel the weight of his gaze. She needed to regain her composure, to remind herself that she was strong and capable, but the fear lingered, gnawing at her resolve. Maya walked to her window, peering through the blinds to the street below. The SUV was still there, its engine idling, a dark sentinel watching over her. "This isn't happening," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. She refused to let fear dictate her life. She had worked too hard to build her independence, to let a man like Viktor Petrov invade her world. But as the hours passed, the dread settled in her chest, a heavy weight that wouldn't lift. She tried to distract herself with her art, but the lines on the page blurred as her thoughts spiraled. The shadows of her fears crept closer, and she knew she had to confront this head-on. The next morning, Maya decided to take action. She couldn't keep living in hiding, constantly looking over her shoulder. She needed to confront the reality of her situation. With a deep breath, she opened her laptop and began researching Viktor Petrov, his empire, and the world he inhabited. What she found only deepened her resolve to stay away from him, but it also fueled her curiosity. Victor was more than just a mafia boss. He was a businessman, a man who had built an empire from the ground up. His story was one of power and ambition, but it came at a cost. The more she read, the more she realized that he was a man shaped by his past, a man who had fought for everything he had. Yet she couldn't help but wonder what lay beneath the surface. What drove a man like him? What made him tick? There was a part of her that was fascinated, intrigued by the enigma he presented. But that fascination was quickly overshadowed by the reality of his world, a world filled with danger and darkness. As the day wore on, Maya felt a growing sense of urgency. She needed to find a way to break free from the grip of his obsession. She couldn't let Viktor Petrov define her life. With a newfound determination, she made plans to attend a networking event that evening, hoping to immerse herself in the art community and distract herself from the looming threat. But as she prepared for the event, the nagging feeling of being watched returned, a shroud of unease that clung to her. She dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident yet unassuming. She couldn't afford to draw attention to herself, not when she felt so vulnerable. As she stepped out of her apartment, she took one last glance at the street below. The SUV was gone, but the sense of relief was fleeting. She knew that Victor was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Maya arrived at the gallery, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement and creativity. The walls were adorned with vibrant pieces of art, each telling a story of its own. She mingled with fellow artists and patrons, forcing herself to engage in conversations, to pretend that everything was normal. But the moment she spotted a familiar figure across the room, her heart sank. Victor stood there, his presence commanding and magnetic, a stark contrast to the lively crowd around him. He was dressed impeccably, his dark suit accentuating his chiseled features. He scanned the room with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. Maya's instincts kicked in, and she quickly turned away, her heart racing as she tried to blend into the crowd. She could feel his gaze on her, a palpable force that made her skin prickle. The air felt thick with tension, and she knew she had to escape before he made his way over. But as she moved through the gallery, the realization hit her. There was no escaping him. Victor was a part of this world now, and she was tangled in his web whether she liked it or not. The evening took on a surreal quality as she navigated through conversations, her mind racing with thoughts of how to protect herself. As the night wore on, she found herself cornered, trapped between her fear and an undeniable attraction. Victor approached her, his presence overwhelming as he leaned in slightly, his voice low and smooth. "You're avoiding me, Maya. Why is that?" Her heart raced as she met his gaze, a mixture of defiance and fear swirling within her. "I'm not avoiding you," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm just busy." "Busy?" he echoed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Or perhaps you're afraid of what you might feel if you let me in." The tension between them crackled like electricity, and Maya fought to maintain her composure. She couldn't let him see her falter. "I'm not afraid of anything," she shot back, her words laced with conviction. Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of something deeper passing through his eyes. "We both know that's not true," he said softly, his gaze penetrating. "You're drawn to me, whether you admit it or not." Maya's breath hitched, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, but the truth lingered in the air between them. There was a magnetic pull that she couldn't ignore, a connection that both terrified and intrigued her. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, a loud crash echoed through the gallery, shattering the moment. Glass shattered and chaos erupted as people screamed and ducked for cover. Maya's instincts kicked in, and she instinctively moved closer to Victor, her heart racing as she sought refuge. In that moment, everything changed. The world outside of their connection faded away, leaving only the two of them in a whirlwind of uncertainty. As they stood together amidst the chaos, Maya realized that she was no longer just an observer in this dangerous game. She was now a player, and the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. The night had just begun, and the shadows of the Bratva loomed larger than ever. Maya's heart raced as the chaos of the gallery enveloped her. The loud crash echoed in her ears, drowning out the frantic whispers and screams of the crowd. She felt Victor's presence beside her, a solid anchor amidst the turmoil, yet the very thought of his proximity sent a shiver of uncertainty down her spine. She had never been one to cower from danger, but this was different. This was Victor Petrov, the man whose mere gaze set her on edge, whose aura of power and menace was intoxicating. As the crowd surged toward the exits, Maya instinctively turned to Victor, her eyes searching for reassurance. He stood tall, his expression a mask of calm amidst the chaos, scanning the room with an intensity that made her breath hitch. There was a part of her that wanted to flee, to escape the magnetic pull he had over her, but another part was drawn to him, captivated by the mystery that surrounded him. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low and steady, cutting through the noise. It was a command wrapped in a suggestion, and despite herself, she found comfort in it. Maya nodded, her mind racing. She had to think clearly, to find a way out of this mess without losing herself in his world. The gallery's atmosphere shifted, the air thick with tension. She could feel the weight of Victor's gaze on her, as if he were reading her thoughts. "What are you really afraid of, Maya?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, yet it felt like a thunderclap in her ears. "Is it me, or the world I represent?" She opened her mouth to respond, but the truth was tangled in her throat. It wasn't just him, it was everything he symbolized. The danger, the allure, the life she had never wanted, but now found herself entangled in. "I'm not afraid," she finally managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I just want to get out of here." Victor's lips curled into a faint smile, a mixture of amusement and something deeper. "You're lying," he said softly, his eyes penetrating hers. "But that's okay. You don't have to admit it. Not yet." The crowd began to disperse, and Maya seized the moment to break away from Victor's intense gaze. She needed space to breathe, to think. As she maneuvered through the throngs of people, her mind raced back to the feeling of being watched, the sense of being drawn into a game she didn't even know she was playing. She had spent years building her life, establishing her independence, and now it felt like it was all slipping away. The gallery's exit loomed ahead, but before she could reach it, she felt a hand on her arm. It was Victor, his grip firm yet not unkind. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, his voice low, laced with a hint of possessiveness that sent a thrill through her. "I need to get home," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is too much." He stepped closer, and the world around them faded into a blur. "You think you can just walk away?" he challenged, his eyes darkening. "You're already in this, Maya. You can't pretend you're not." Her pulse quickened at his words, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through her. "I don't want to be in this," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I don't want to be part of your world." Victor studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You say that now, but you're drawn to it. To me," he replied, his tone softer, almost contemplative. "You can't deny the connection we have. It's more than just attraction." Maya felt a flush creep up her cheeks. She wanted to argue, to push back against his certainty, but deep down, she knew he was right. There was something undeniable between them, a pull that was both thrilling and terrifying. "I don't want to be in this," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I don't want to be part of your world." Victor studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "You say that now, but you're drawn to it. To me," he replied, his tone softer, almost contemplative. "You can't deny the connection we have. It's more than just attraction." Maya felt a flush creep up her cheeks. She wanted to argue, to push back against his certainty, but deep down, she knew he was right. There was something undeniable between them, a pull that was both thrilling and terrifying. "This isn't a game to me," she said finally, her voice firm. "I have a life, a career. I can't just throw it all away." "Then don't," he countered, his gaze unwavering. "But you need to understand that the world I live in is dangerous. You can't just walk away without consequences." The weight of his words settled heavily on her shoulders. She had always been a fighter, someone who faced challenges head-on, but this was different. This was a world where shadows lurked, where loyalty was tested, and where a single misstep could have dire repercussions. "I don't want to be part of your danger," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Victor's expression softened slightly, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a glimpse of the man beneath the facade. "You don't have to be afraid of me, Maya. I won't let anything happen to you," he vowed, his tone earnest. "But you need to trust me." Trust. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. How could she trust someone whose life was built on secrets and shadows? Yet, as she looked into his eyes, she felt a part of her wanting to believe him. I don't know if I can, she admitted, her voice trembling. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw his gaze, felt the weight of his words. "You're drawn to me." The phrase echoed in her mind, haunting and tantalizing. She had never been one to succumb to obsession, but Victor was different. He was a puzzle, a mystery she couldn't resist unraveling. Yet as the days turned into a week, Maya felt the pressure mounting. She had to make a decision. She could either embrace the unknown and step into Victor's world or retreat back into her safe, predictable life. But could she really trust him? Could she trust herself? As she stood in front of her easel one evening, the colors swirling on the canvas, she felt a surge of determination. She had always fought for what she wanted, and she wasn't about to let fear dictate her choices. If Victor was indeed waiting for her, she needed to confront her feelings head-on. With a deep breath, she picked up her phone and hesitated before dialing the number she had memorized. The screen lit up, and her heart raced as she pressed the call button. Each ring felt like an eternity, but finally she heard his deep voice on the other end. "Maya?" "Victor," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "I need to talk." "Good," he replied, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. "I've been waiting for your call." As they arranged to meet, Maya felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. She was stepping into the unknown, but for the first time, it felt like she was taking control of her destiny. The shadows of the Bratva loomed large, but she was ready to face them, ready to confront her fears and discover the truth behind Viktor Petrov. The evening was cool as she made her way to the upscale restaurant where they would meet. The city lights twinkled like stars against the darkening sky, and Maya felt a rush of adrenaline as she approached the entrance. She was no longer just a spectator, she was an active participant in this dangerous game. Inside, the ambiance was luxurious, with soft music playing in the background. Maya spotted Victor at a table near the window, his presence commanding even in a crowded room. He looked up as she approached, his expression a mix of curiosity and something deeper that sent a thrill through her. "Glad you could make it," he said, his voice low and inviting as he gestured for her to sit. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied, her heart racing as she settled into the plush chair across from him. The tension between them was palpable, and she could feel the weight of their unspoken connection hanging in the air. "Tell me what you're thinking," he urged, his gaze penetrating as he leaned forward slightly. Maya took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I've been thinking about everything, about us, about this world you're in," she began, her voice steady. "I want to understand it, but I need to know what I'm getting into." Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of appreciation crossing his features. "It's not an easy world, Maya. It's filled with danger and deception. But I promise you, I'll do everything in my power to protect you." She met his gaze, searching for sincerity. "And what about you? What do you want from me?" He paused, his expression contemplative. "I want you to see me for who I truly am, beyond the title of Bratva Boss. I want you to choose me, not out of fear or obligation, but because you want to." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord within her, and for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. "I don't know if I can choose this life," she admitted, her voice softening, "but I want to try. I want to understand." Victor nodded, a flicker of something akin to relief crossing his features. "Then let me show you. Let me introduce you to my world, and you can decide for yourself if it's a place you want to be." As they talked, the tension between them shifted, evolving into something deeper, a connection forged through vulnerability and honesty. Maya felt the walls she had built around her heart beginning to crumble, replaced by a growing curiosity about the man before her. The evening unfolded like a dance, each word drawing them closer together. Maya found herself captivated by Victor's stories, the glimpses he offered into a life filled with power and danger. Yet, beneath it all, she sensed a vulnerability that made him human, a man shaped by his past. As they finished their meal, the conversation shifted to the future. "So, what's next for you?" Victor asked, his gaze steady and unwavering. Maya hesitated, contemplating her response. "I want to keep creating, to push boundaries with my art, but I also want to explore this connection we have," she confessed, her heart racing. "I want to see where it leads." A smile broke across Victor's face, lighting up his features. "Then let's explore it together," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "I'll show you the world I inhabit, and you can show me yours." In that moment, Maya felt a surge of determination. She was ready to embrace the unknown, to step into the shadows with Victor by her side. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt a sense of excitement about the journey that lay ahead. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, the city buzzed around them, alive with possibilities. Maya knew that the road would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them, ready to confront the darkness and discover the light that could exist within it. Together, they stepped into the night, the shadows of the Bratva looming behind them. But for Maya, the future felt brighter than ever. She was no longer just a girl hiding from danger. She was a woman ready to embrace her destiny, ready to forge her own path alongside the man who had captivated her heart. Maya stood in front of her easel, the scent of paint and turpentine swirling around her like a comforting embrace. The late afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of her studio, casting a warm glow on the vibrant colors that adorned her canvas. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding her, an undercurrent of tension coursed through her veins. She could feel it, the weight of Victor's gaze still lingering in her mind, the intensity of his presence haunting her thoughts. It had been a few days since their dinner, and Maya had been trying to focus on her art, but every brushstroke felt heavy with the implications of her connection to the Bratva Boss. She had allowed herself to be drawn into his world, yet the shadows of that world loomed larger than ever. The danger, the allure, and the promise of something deeper tugged at her heart, but so did the instinct to protect herself. As she painted, her thoughts drifted back to their conversations. Victor had opened up about his life, revealing snippets of a past filled with power struggles and loss. He had shared stories of betrayal and loyalty, of a world where trust was a luxury few could afford. Each revelation had peeled back layers of the man she was beginning to understand, yet it also intensified her fear. She was no longer just an observer, she was a participant in a dangerous game. The sound of her phone vibrating against the wooden table jolted her from her reverie. She glanced at the screen and felt a flutter of anxiety in her stomach. It was a message from Victor. "Thinking of you. Can we meet tonight?" Part of her longed to see him, to feel the magnetic pull that had ignited between them, but another part screamed for caution. She had seen the chaos that followed him, the way people looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect. He was a man of power, but that power came with a price. Before she could overthink it, she typed a quick response. "I'm busy tonight. Can we do tomorrow instead?" She hit send, hoping he wouldn't sense her hesitation. Moments later, her phone buzzed again. "Tomorrow it is. I'll pick you up at 7. A shiver of anticipation ran through her, mingling with the anxiety that had become her constant companion. She set her brush down and took a deep breath, trying to center herself. This was the life she had chosen. No, the life that had chosen her. There was no going back now. As the day turned into night, Maya found herself pacing her apartment, her mind racing. What would she wear? How should she act? Would she be able to keep her emotions in check? She had to remind herself that while Victor was charming and magnetic, he was also a man who walked a dangerous line. The world he inhabited was not one she understood, and she needed to tread carefully. When 7 o'clock rolled around, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her blouse. She chose a simple yet elegant outfit, a fitted black dress that hugged her curves and made her feel confident. She wanted to project strength, but she also wanted to be approachable. The dichotomy of her feelings was overwhelming. The sound of a car pulling up outside made her heart skip a beat. She took a moment to steady herself before opening the door. When she stepped outside, Victor was waiting for her, leaning casually against his sleek black car. He looked effortlessly handsome in a tailored suit, his dark hair slightly tousled by the evening breeze. The moment their eyes met, a spark ignited between them, and Maya felt her resolve waver. "Good evening, Maya," he said, his voice deep and smooth, sending a shiver down her spine. "Hi, Victor," she replied, trying to sound composed. "Thanks for picking me up." "Always," he said, his gaze unwavering. "You look beautiful." Her cheeks flushed at the compliment, and she could feel her heart racing. "Thank you. You look like you own the night." He chuckled, a low, rich sound that made her smile. "In some ways, I do." As they drove through the bustling streets of Chicago, the city lights flickering past like stars, Maya couldn't help but steal glances at him. The tension in the car was palpable, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty swirling in the air. She wanted to know more about him, about the life he led, but part of her was terrified of what she might uncover. "Where are we going?" she asked, breaking the silence. "To a place where we can talk without interruptions," he replied, his eyes focused on the road ahead. "I want to show you a side of my world that you haven't seen yet." Maya's heart raced at his words. She felt a thrill of curiosity, but also a knot of anxiety in her stomach. What did he mean? What side of his world was he about to reveal? She wanted to trust him, to believe that he would keep her safe, but the reality of his life weighed heavily on her mind. They arrived at a luxurious rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline. The ambiance was elegant, with soft music playing in the background and candles flickering on each table. Maya stepped out of the car, her breath catching at the breathtaking view. The city sprawled beneath them, alive with energy and possibilities. Victor took her hand as they walked inside, and she felt a rush of warmth at his touch. He led her to a private table on the terrace, where they could gaze out at the twinkling lights below. As they settled into their seats, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of intimacy enveloping them. "I thought this would be a good place for us to talk," Victor said, his gaze fixed on her. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "It really is," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for bringing me here." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her heart race. "I want you to understand my world, Maya. It's not just about power and money. There are layers to it that few people see." Maya nodded, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" "There are sacrifices that come with my position. Loyalty is everything, but it can also be a double-edged sword." He paused, his expression darkening. "There are people who would do anything to undermine me, to take what I've built. It's a constant battle." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. The reality of his life was more complex than she had imagined. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," he admitted, his voice low, "but it's the life I chose, and now it's the life that involves you." Her heart raced at his words, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her. "Involves me? I'm not sure I understand." "I'm drawn to you, Maya," he said, his gaze piercing. "You're different from anyone I've ever met. You have a strength that intrigues me, and I want to protect that." A rush of warmth flooded her chest, but she couldn't shake the underlying fear. "Protect me from what, exactly?" "From the world I live in," he replied, his voice steady. "I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Maya's heart raced as she processed his words. "But I'm already involved, aren't I? Just by being here, by knowing you?" Victor leaned forward, his expression serious. "I need you to understand that this is not a game for me. I don't want to put you in danger, but I also can't deny what I feel." "What do you feel?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. His gaze softened, and for a moment the walls he had built around himself seemed to crumble. "I feel a connection, Maya, something real. But I also know that my world is dangerous, and I don't want you to be a casualty of it." She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "I appreciate your honesty, Victor, but I need time to process all of this." "Take all the time you need," he said, "but know that I'm here, and I want to explore this connection with you, no matter the risks." As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed easily, the tension slowly dissipating as they shared laughter and stories. Maya found herself captivated by Victor's passion, his drive, and the glimpses of vulnerability he allowed her to see. She could sense the weight he carried, the burden of his choices, and it made her heart ache for him. Yet, as the night wore on, the shadows of his world crept back into her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that danger was always lurking just beyond the edges of their conversation. The thought of being drawn deeper into his life both thrilled and terrified her. As they finished their meal, Victor leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. "I'm glad we did this, Maya. You have a way of grounding me." "Thank you for sharing this with me," she replied, her heart racing, "but I can't help but wonder what comes next." "Next?" he echoed, his brow furrowing slightly. "Next is up to you. I want you to be a part of my life, but I won't force you into something you're not ready for." Maya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "I appreciate that. But I can't ignore the reality of your world." Victor reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I promise to protect you, Maya. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." His grip was firm, and for a moment she allowed herself to believe him. But as she looked into his eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that the deeper she delved into his world, the more perilous her own life would become. The night ended with a lingering tension, a promise of what could be, but also a reminder of the risks involved. As they stepped back into the cool night air, Maya felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She was standing on the precipice of something extraordinary, but the abyss below was filled with uncertainty. As Victor drove her home, the silence between them was charged with unspoken words. Maya knew that their connection was growing stronger, but so was the danger that accompanied it. She had to be cautious, to protect herself while also exploring the feelings that had begun to blossom between them. When they reached her apartment, Victor parked the car and turned to face her. "I'll see you soon, Maya." "Yeah," she replied, her heart racing. "Soon." As she stepped out of the car, she felt his gaze on her, a mixture of longing and concern. She closed the door and watched as he drove away, the taillights disappearing into the night. Alone in the silence of her apartment, she leaned against the door, her heart pounding with the weight of what lay ahead. Maya knew she was treading a fine line between desire and danger, but she couldn't help but feel drawn to Victor. The connection they shared was undeniable, but the shadows of his world loomed large, threatening to engulf her in their darkness. As she turned off the lights and sank onto her couch, she couldn't shake the feeling that the choices she made in the coming days would shape her destiny in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more revelations, and perhaps a deeper understanding of the man who had captivated her heart. But for now, all she could do was brace herself for the journey ahead, knowing that the path was fraught with uncertainty and peril. The only certainty was that she was no longer just a girl hiding from danger. She was a woman standing at the edge of a world that promised both love and chaos, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, the soft glow of her bedside lamp casting a warm light over her cozy apartment. She could still feel the intensity of Victor's gaze lingering on her, a reminder of their last encounter. The way he had held her hand, promising to protect her, sent shivers down her spine. Yet that promise felt like a double-edged sword. The more she thought about him, the more she felt the weight of the danger that surrounded his world. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking her from her reverie. It was a message from Victor, a simple text that read, "Are you safe?" A knot tightened in her stomach. She wanted to reply, to reassure him, but the truth was she didn't feel safe, not anymore. The shadows of his world were creeping into her life, and she was terrified of what that meant. Before she could respond, another message came through. "Meet me at the old warehouse. I need to show you something." Her heart raced at the thought of meeting him in a place so associated with danger. The warehouse was known for its ties to the Bratva, a place where deals were made and lives were lost. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. This was the moment she had been dreading, and yet a part of her was undeniably drawn to him. With a deep breath, she typed back, "I'll be there." The decision felt reckless, but she couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward Victor. He was a man shrouded in mystery, and despite her better judgment, she was compelled to uncover the truth behind his facade. As she made her way to the warehouse, the streets of Chicago felt different. The bustling energy of the city seemed to fade away, replaced by an undercurrent of tension. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat echoing the conflict brewing within her. The closer she got to the warehouse, the more she questioned her decision. What if she was walking into a trap? What if this was the moment she would lose everything she had fought to build? When she arrived, the warehouse loomed in front of her, its dark silhouette against the night sky evoking a sense of foreboding. She took a moment to gather her thoughts before stepping inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of oil, a stark contrast to the vibrant life she had outside these walls. Victor was already there, his tall figure silhouetted against the dim light filtering through the broken windows. He turned as she entered, and for a moment, the world outside faded away. It was just the two of them, caught in a moment that felt both electric and dangerous. "Maya," he said, his voice low and steady, "I'm glad you came." She crossed her arms, trying to maintain her composure. "What did you want to show me?" He stepped closer, the intensity of his gaze making her heart race. "I wanted you to see the reality of my world. You deserve to know what you're getting into." Her breath caught in her throat as he led her deeper into the warehouse. The space was filled with crates and shadows, the remnants of deals made and broken. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her, the stories of those who had walked these floors before her. As they moved through the dimly lit space, Victor stopped in front of a large crate. "This is what I deal with," he said, gesturing to the box. "Drugs, weapons, and power. It's a dangerous game, and I'm in the middle of it." Maya swallowed hard, her mind racing. "Why are you showing me this? What do you want me to do with this information?" "I want you to understand," he replied, his tone serious. "I want you to know that I'm not just a man in a suit. I'm a leader, and with that comes a price." The weight of his words hung in the air between them. She could see the vulnerability in his eyes, a glimpse of the man beneath the facade of the Mafia boss. "And what price do you expect me to pay?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Victor stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I don't want you to pay a price, Maya. I want you to be part of my life, but you need to understand the risks involved." The tension between them was palpable, a magnetic force pulling them closer. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the promise of something more lurking just beneath the surface. But with that promise came the reality of danger, the knowledge that her life could change in an instant. "I don't know if I can be part of this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have my own life, my own dreams. I can't just walk away from everything I've built." Victor's expression softened, and for a moment, she saw the man behind the mask. "I understand that, Maya, but I can't let you go, not now that I've found you." His words sent a rush of emotions through her, fear, desire, and an undeniable connection that she couldn't ignore. "You're obsessed with me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This isn't healthy." He shook his head, frustration flickering in his eyes. "It's not obsession, it's a need to protect you. The moment I saw you, I knew you were different. You're strong, independent, and you challenge me in ways I never expected." Maya felt her heart swell at his words, but the fear still lingered. "And what if that challenges puts me in danger? What if I can't handle this world?" Victor stepped back, his expression shifting to one of determination. "Then I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. I won't let anyone hurt you." As he spoke, she could see the depth of his commitment, the fierce loyalty that lay beneath his tough exterior. But the shadows of his world were still looming, and she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was always just around the corner. "Victor, I need to think," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't just dive into this without knowing what it means for me." He nodded, understanding etched on his face. "Take your time, but know that I'll be here when you're ready. Just remember, you're not alone in this." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the dim light of the warehouse, her heart racing with uncertainty. She felt torn between two worlds, the life she had built and the dangerous allure of the man who had captivated her heart. As she made her way back to her apartment, the weight of her decision pressed heavily on her shoulders. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being pulled into something much larger than herself, a world filled with power, danger, and a connection that threatened to consume her. Days passed, and Maya found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. She immersed herself in her art, using her creativity as an outlet for the turmoil brewing inside her. But no matter how hard she tried to focus on her work, her thoughts kept drifting back to Victor. The way he looked at her, the intensity of his presence, it was intoxicating. One evening, as she was preparing for an art show, her phone buzzed with a message from Victor. "I need to see you. It's urgent." A sense of dread washed over her. She knew that urgency often meant trouble. With a deep breath, she replied, "I'll be there." The decision felt inevitable, as if she was being drawn into a current she couldn't escape. When she arrived at the location he had specified, her heart raced. The dimly lit alley was a stark contrast to the vibrant atmosphere of her art show. She spotted Victor leaning against a wall, his expression serious. The moment their eyes met, she felt a rush of emotions, fear, desire, and an overwhelming sense of connection. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's been a threat against you," he said, his tone urgent. "Someone has been watching you, and I need to keep you safe." Her heart dropped. "What do you mean? Who?" "I can't say right now," he replied, his voice low, "but I need you to trust me. We need to get you out of here." Panic surged within her. "Out of here? Where are we going?" "To my place," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "It's the safest option." Maya hesitated, torn between fear and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. "I can't just leave everything behind." "I know it's a lot to ask," he said, his voice softening, "but your safety is my priority. Please, just trust me." In that moment, she saw the vulnerability behind his tough exterior, the man who was willing to risk everything to protect her. With a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, let's go." As they moved through the shadows, Maya felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. She was stepping into a world she didn't fully understand, but she knew that Victor would be there to guide her. The connection they shared was stronger than the fear that threatened to consume her. When they arrived at Victor's apartment, the atmosphere shifted. The luxurious space was a stark contrast to the chaos outside. He led her inside, and she could feel the tension in the air, a palpable sense of danger that hung over them. "Stay here," he instructed. "I'll check the perimeter." Maya nodded, her heart racing as she took in her surroundings. The apartment was sleek and modern, a reflection of Victor's power and status, but it was also filled with an undercurrent of danger, a reminder that she was now entangled in his world. As she waited, her mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. She was no longer just a graphic designer, a woman trying to make her mark in the world. She was now a part of something much larger, a world filled with power, danger, and an undeniable connection to the man who had captivated her heart. When Victor returned, his expression was serious. "I've secured the area, but we need to stay vigilant. I can't let my guard down." She could see the determination in his eyes, the fierce protectiveness that drove him. "What if they find us?" she asked, her voice trembling. "They won't," he replied, his tone steady. "I promise to keep you safe." In that moment, she felt a rush of emotions, fear, desire, and an overwhelming sense of connection. She knew that she was stepping into a world filled with uncertainty, but she also felt a sense of empowerment. She was no longer just a girl hiding from danger. She was a woman standing at the edge of a world that promised both love and chaos. As they settled into the apartment, Maya realized that this was just the beginning. The choices she made in the coming days would shape her destiny in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. But for now, she was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and peril. Little did she know, the true test of their connection was yet to come, as the shadows of Victor's world began to close in around them, threatening to engulf them both in darkness.